A shocking and horrific case out of Tennessee ends with the murderer receiving the ultimate punishment.
It is therefore ordered that you shall be put to death by lethal injection.
So how did we get here? Let's go back to December of 2019. For 36-year-old Jennifer Paxton, she suffered through tough times. She was a heroin addict, sometimes prostituted herself for drugs or money. She was homeless and seemingly put her trust into the wrong people. But on August 5th of 2020, police would make a gruesome discovery. They found Jennifer's lifeless body under the bed in an apartment in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. But investigators say Jennifer didn't die in August, but months earlier, and her body was kept in a freezer. Prosecutors would paint a grim picture of Jennifer's final moments. She was struck with a baseball bat, raped, before being strangled to death. And it didn't stop there. Her body was mutilated to the point investigators say her body was physically mistreated in such a way that was shocking and offensive. The home Jennifer was found in was the home of Sean Finnegan and his girlfriend, Rebecca Dishman. Police say Jennifer had been living with the two in their home. Officials say the duo lured her with the promise of a place to stay. Finnegan and Dishman were arrested on August 6th of 2020 and charged with Jennifer's death. The two faced a slew of charges, including first-degree murder, aggravated rape, aggravated kidnapping, abuse of corpse, and tampering with evidence. 3 years after their arrest, Dishman would end up pleading guilty to first-degree murder. She would be sentenced to life in prison for murder plus 50 years for a rape of a child. In August of 2024, Finnegan would stand trial for Jennifer's murder. On day one of his trial, the state introduced several key pieces of evidence, including a call to police in which Finnegan's neighbor reported there was a dead body that was stashed in their freezer.
They told me to call the police and let you guys know that he has a dead body in his freezer in the upstairs.
So you're at 302. What neighbor are you talking about?
The one directly behind me.
Hang on a minute. Look at the map. Directly behind you on Florida?
Yeah, I'm on Florida. It'd be East Fairview Road, I think.
So 320 or 322?
I have no idea what his address is. His name's Sean Finnegan.
Jennifer's family members, including her aunt and her cousin, also took the stand. Jennifer's aunt, Beverly Payne, testified about her battle with addiction.
Tell the members of the jury what it is that Jennifer struggled with.
Jennifer struggled with drugs and drinking.
Okay. And when did that begin in her life?
After she lost her children.
Okay. And so at some point in her life as a mother, she lost all 7 of her children?
Yes.
To the Department of Children's Services?
Yes.
Through her addiction?
Yes.
With regard to Jennifer's freedom, was she always out in public?
Yes.
Okay. And where was she living when she was out in public?
On the streets.
Okay. And where in particular would, do you know what areas of town she would live in?
From Merchants Road, North Knoxville, to South Knoxville.
Okay. And were those generally 2 types of areas she would stay at?
Yes.
Do you know if she got in trouble with the police from time to time?
Yes.
Okay. And how would that make you feel when that happened?
I'd be okay if she was in jail.
To explain that to the jury, why?
We knew that she was safe and off the streets if she was in jail.
Jennifer's cousin, Brittany Payne, echoed Beverly's testimony that Jennifer's life took a dark turn when she lost her children. But even while on the streets, they still communicated through social media.
Did things happen in her life, though, that caused her to go, in terms of her relationship with you, strain that relationship?
No, we had a pretty decent relationship.
Okay. But there are things that happened in her life that caused her to lose her children.
Yes.
Did she change direction at that point?
Yes.
Okay.
I was still there for her at the time.
I understand that, but as far as what she was getting into, what was she doing after she lost her children?
She got she went down a wrong path in life, and she started using heroin. I guess she just wasn't there in her head anymore.
Okay. So her drug of choice was?
Heroin.
And what would she do to get heroin?
She would usually bum money off of our grandmother, or she would get money off me. She would also prostitute to get money.
Okay. And where was she living, if you know, in 2019?
In 2000, she was a little bit of here and there. She was homeless at the time. She was living in a tent in the woods.
Okay. Where were her homeless camps that she'd stay at?
Well, the only ones that I know of where I have met her at several times was off of Merchants, and then the Walgreens on Chapman Highway between Chapman and Moody, on the corner of Chapman and Moody, right
Okay.
there.
There's a Walgreens and there's woods behind there?
Yes, the woods behind there, it's a homeless camp pretty much, and if you're not homeless, you can't go there.
Okay, but you would in fact go to homeless camps to meet her?
I would meet her outside of a homeless camp.
Okay.
She would never allow me to get out of the car I would hand her the money through the window.
Okay. In terms of handing her money, how would you arrange that if she needed money? How did you communicate with her?
Through Facebook.
Okay. And so how would she, if she's homeless, have Facebook?
There's plenty of places that you can free Wi-Fi, as
Okay.
in McDonald's and stuff like that.
Just using devices that are connected to Wi-Fi? That
Yes.
you can go to McDonald's there on Chapman, or any business on Chapman pretty much to
Yes.
get Wi-Fi? And she would request money from you?
Yes, or
Would she-
food.
Would she request food?
Yes.
Okay, and what would happen when you bring her food instead of money?
She'd be thankful, but she would ask if I had a couple dollars to loan her.
Okay. And how often did you communicate with her in the late of 2019?
The last time I spoke to her was before Thanksgiving, and she had asked me for like $20 to get her something to eat for her and her boyfriend. And I had met her at the Walgreens on Chapman Highway, and I gave her the $20, and that was the last time that I had seen her.
Okay. And were you part of the effort to report her missing sometime
No,
later?
but I was the first person in our family to post on Facebook looking for her.
Okay.
Jennifer's family testified the last time they saw her and had contact with her was in November of 2019. However, according to Officer Phyllis Tonkin, she wasn't officially reported missing until February of 2020.
So I would have made contact with Miss Dinwiddie, who indicated that her daughter had been missing since she had last seen her November the 4th of 2019. At that point in time, I would go through different databases that we had access to at the police department to determine if anybody else had seen Miss Paxton or had any contact with Miss Paxton from the time in which she was last seen by her mother until the time in which we received the report.
We don't know when the last Facebook communication might have been, and okay. And it was February 2nd when the mother actually reported her missing,
Of
right?
2020.
So that'd be like 3 months after she last saw her. Okay.
But after the lunch break, the next testimony would come from a key player who had firsthand knowledge of what Jennifer suffered through before she took her last breath.
Rebecca, are you a little nervous today?
Yes.
Are you excited to testify?
Yes, I've waited for this moment for 4 years.
Part of Rebecca Dishman's agreement after pleading guilty in 2023 was she was required to testify for the state against Finnegan at his trial. While giving her background to jurors on how she even got involved in the case, Dishman testified she met Finnegan on Facebook.
And what happened that made you leave there?
I had met Sean on Facebook and decided to move in with him 2 weeks after meeting him. He convinced me.
What was that last part?
He convinced me to move in with him.
Okay. So you say you met him on Facebook
Mm-hmm.
and moved in with him about 2 weeks later. Am I hearing that correctly? Again, sorry,
Yes.
it is. Make sure you speak into the mic. Could you tell us about that interaction, about meeting him on Facebook and what happened in that 2-week period?
Our relationship was kind of fast, and within the 2 weeks I decided to move in because the people that I was staying with, I felt like I was scared that they would end up kicking me out, and I was hoping that things would work out better.
So how did you feel about trying to move in with Sean?
At the beginning, I felt, comfort and safe.
She said things quickly soured once she moved in with Finnegan.
So what were things like when you moved in?
The first couple weeks were okay, and I went to go take a shower, and that was our first argument. He pushed me, and I ended up cutting my leg pretty bad, and that led to my first punishment.
Okay.
But then she would go into more detail, giving a graphic account of what went on behind closed doors in their relationship.
Now, how would you consider the dynamic of your relationship? Who was in charge?
Sean.
And you had said you did something that made him unhappy.
Yes.
And that there were consequences. He told you there were
Yes.
consequences. Was that a normal part of your relationship with Sean Finnegan?
I didn't know that it would come to that extent. Like, I knew it would be kinky sex, but I didn't think it would be violent as it was.
Okay, so to rephrase that, you knew there was going to be kinky sex.
Yes.
And you were consenting to that.
Yes.
You were okay with that.
Yes.
You were engaged with him and an active participant
Yes.
in that. Is that correct? And so you said you didn't expect it to get as violent as it did.
Right.
What do you mean by that?
He was a lot more aggressive than I thought he was gonna be. I wasn't expecting it to be as harsh as it was. The punishments and just the dynamic and power role, I guess you could say.
Okay, when you say you didn't expect it to be, as harsh or as aggressive, what kind of things would he do then as punishment?
Anywhere from putting me in a dog cage and urinating on me and climaxing, defecating on me, chaining me up with a dog chain, using box cutters on me, sodomizing me, using torch ladders on me, just very violent punishments.
And I understand this is probably hard to talk about, but when you say using these things on you, what do you mean he was using them for? What was he doing?
For his sexual gratification.
Okay. So you say he used chains on you.
Yes.
How specifically were they used on you?
It was wrapped around my neck with a padlock, and he made me walk on all fours and act like a dog.
Okay. And the same thing, he would put you in the dog cage?
Yes.
Okay. You said he used a box cutter?
Yes.
Is that what you said? How did he use
used
that?
it on my inner thighs and cut.
Despite the atrocities she was put through, Dishman admitted on the stand she still loves Finnegan. Prosecutors then asked her about Jennifer, as Dishman would reveal she was put through a much worse but similar situation. Only difference, she lost her life.
She ate breakfast, and we were talking, and after she ate breakfast, he, walked her over towards the back door and was showing her a baseball bat. And then he started hitting her over the head, and I went into shock, and he yelled at me to go upstairs because his mother was coming down for her medication. By the time I got downstairs, they were fighting. Jennifer had the fire grate over her to protect her, and there was blood on the floor.
When you say the fire grate, you said you were saying about fireplace earlier. There's the thing in front of the fire place, or like the thing that logs would be in?
The thing that is in front of the fire.
Like the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So you say she's got that defending herself with it. Is she hitting him with it, or is she holding it over her?
She was just defending herself with it, holding it to her body and head.
Was that effective defense?
No.
So what happened is when you arrived and you see that going on? What's going on next?
I was in shock, and I approached slowly, and he told me to go into the kitchen and get the cleaning supplies.
And what did you do when you got the cleaning supplies?
He told me to clean up the blood, and he was disgrading her. He ripped her pants down and was screaming at her, and he said, "Why don't you shave?" And she started crying, and he just spat on her and was really aggressive towards her.
So she's there on the ground, it sounds like at this point.
Yes.
And he's ripping that off. And you have cleaning supplies.
Yes.
What's going on at that point?
I was in shock, and he told me to clean up the blood around her, and I did so. And at one point, he told me to get on one side, and he got on the other, and both of us went up the stairs with her and walked her to his bedroom.
So are you each propping her up at this point, or are you just like walking her and escorting her?
Escorting her.
Okay. So she's conscious.
Yes.
At this point still. So you walk up the stairs. What happens when you get up there?
He locks the door and lays her on the floor on my side of the bed, and he makes her perform oral sex on her. And I'm forced to watch.
And how long did that continue?
Until he got angry and pulled my shirt down and made me finish.
And what do you mean by he made you finish?
He wasn't satisfied with her, and he made me perform oral on him.
Dishman says after, Finnegan went downstairs to clean up the blood and made her watch Jennifer so she wouldn't escape. Throughout this time, Jennifer was chained to the bed. The way Dishman described it, she tried to cut off the zip ties that kept Jennifer attached to the bed, which made Finnegan angry.
Did he any time follow through on telling her she had to die?
He did this as he was strangling her.
Okay. So if you could tell us about that specifically. She's been in the house, he has gone to work, he's come back from work. What happened in, let's say, the last portion of her life? Could you walk us through what was going on?
Yes. One day he came home from work, and he had bags that had shower curtains, washcloths, bleach, gloves, and things of that nature. And I thought it was for, the house, but he was carrying it upstairs, and once he carried it upstairs, I knew that he was gonna kill her. He had me go with him and shower her in the shower, and as he was strangling her, I was cleaning up the blood that was left over in the shower. And at one point, he screamed at me to get in the bedroom, that I was taking too long. And I came in, and he told me to lock the door. And as I walked in, he was straddled over her, strangling her with a shoestring, and told me to help him. And I just shut down and sat on the bed and just gave up, essentially.
How long did this go on?
For hours. We brought her downstairs, and he put her in a freezer downstairs and blocked it from people getting in. Like, it was faced, the door was faced towards the stairwell.
So is this the freezer that you had there in the kitchen?
No, this was a different freezer.
So this was a different freezer?
Yes.
When did that freezer show up at the house?
I don't know exact dates, but it was there before Jennifer died.
Long time before or short time before?
Shortly.
Okay. So it's there in the living room, you put her in.
Yes.
And he positions it so that the door is facing the wall.
Yes.
How long was it in that position?
I'm not for sure.
But did that change at some point?
Yes.
Could you tell us about that, please?
At one point, he was scared of someone going in the freezer, and we took her body out and carried the freezer upstairs, and then carried her body upstairs and put her in the closet.
So how did this freezer get power in the closet? Is there an outlet in there?
He ran an extension cord to an outlet.
Dishman said she kept tight-lipped on what happened to Jennifer because she was scared. When Finnegan's attorney questioned her under cross-examination, they introduced a letter she had written to him after her arrest.
After this arrest, after you were in jail, after you turned in Sean, right, you were in fear, is what your testimony was, right? You were in fear, correct? And so you had to get out because you were scared.
Yes.
Okay. And so then after you were arrested, it didn't take very long before you started writing letters to Sean again, right?
Right.
And you kept writing him letters, didn't you?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recognize this?
Yes.
What is it?
I wrote in the letter.
It's a letter you wrote?
Yes.
Okay. Can you read the date on there?
6/25/21.
6/25/21. Can you read the letter to the jury?
Hey baby, I just got your letter. I hope all is well. First off, I want you to know I made my decision. I want you to know I'm sorry for the loss of I've done. We have had our good and bad times together. I leave an apology and I'm sorry. I want to be yours and only yours. Baby, will you take me back? Your baby girl misses you. But anyway, I hope you forgive me and write me. Baby girl. P.S. I love you, Daddy.
We talked about kind of stuff that led up to it, right? And then we had Jennifer being introduced to you in the morning or in the afternoon or whenever you woke up, right? She was either immediately hit in the head with a bat or she was there all day and ate breakfast, right?
Right.
Okay. She was either there chained to the bed for a month or for 2 or 3 days, right?
It was like 2 or 3 days.
But you told him a month the first time, right?
Right.
Okay. So let's talk about, so after you got arrested, you go to jail, you write these letters. You start writing these letters to Sean, right?
Yes.
And you continuously write to him, right? Until I assume your lawyers told you to stop.
Yes.
Okay. And then, so after that, some time's passed, and you developed I guess, a relationship with a corrections officer.
Yes.
Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. And that corrections officer would leave his phone for you to take pictures?
On occasion.
Okay. And so it was a semi-sexual relationship?
Yes.
Right. Okay. But you believed it was a relationship?
He told me that we could have fun.
Okay. So just so the jury's clear, you pled guilty to the charges that you faced. You pled guilty to first-degree murder and to kidnapping.
Yes.
Right? And you were charged with the same crimes that Mr. Finnegan is charged with and is facing trial here today, correct?
Yes.
And you were also served with a notice of the state's intent to seek the death penalty.
Yes.
Right? And then you pled guilty. Your attorneys advised you, right? You got good attorneys, don't you?
Yes.
You do.
Very good attorneys.
You've got very good attorneys. And they advised you that it would be in your best interest to take a plea.
Yes.
And so you pled guilty to that.
Yes.
And in exchange, the state's is agreed to not, there's no death penalty, right? They took the death penalty off the table. So you saved your life.
Yes.
And your attorneys advised you that was advisable.
Yes.
On day 2 of the trial, the medical examiner confirmed Jennifer died by strangulation, and her toxicology report revealed more.
Okay, and to be clear, it was actual morphine that was given. She was in her system.
Yeah, this test actually consisted with her at taking morphine.
And does that, in consideration of the injury she sustained, does that alter in any way what you think about how it would affect her being a heroin user?
No, this is really independent of her cause and manner of death.
Finnegan's 3-day trial wrapped with the state reminding jurors both Finnegan and Dishman played a part in Jennifer's gruesome murder.
He says that Rebecca's the one swinging and wielding the bat, with the athletic prowess that I'm sure you probably thought of when you looked at her and thought, wow, she's probably pretty nimble. Did you think that at all? I think not. You probably looked at her and saw frumpy, lumpy, weak. And I don't like to be offensive like that, but that's it. When she took the stand, you observed her person, her condition, and conditioning. But she offered, Kelsey Coons gave you that time frame, showed you how it went down, heard everything next door, heard it go upstairs, and then for a week. Seems like a week. There's banging, the bed banging on the wall up there. I think they're having rough sex up there. When in reality, it's Jennifer, beaten and bruised. But hopefully, she's got enough dope in her that would kill Dr. Malusinic. So hopefully she's comforted a little bit by the fact that he's feeding her up with his mother's morphine. The defendant, in his statement, confessed to felony murder. He said, "My girl hit her with a bat." Even let's take his statement for absolute truth. If we took it for truth, my girl hit her with a bat. I chained her up. Yes, I chained her up. I put the chain around her neck. I didn't know what to do. I was going to nurse her back to health and then free her. And then a killing occurs. He says it doesn't occur in his presence. The judge is going to read you the law. It doesn't have to occur in his presence. If he's part of the kidnapping and puts the chain around her neck, he's guilty of kidnapping, and a killing occurred during that commission of that kidnapping, and he is guilty of felony murder on his own statement. Guilty. Just like all the guys in the bank robbery were guilty.
But the defense would put the blame on Rebecca, saying that she was the murderer and Finnegan only helped cover it up.
And she knows something about that. She knows that there's a body at Sean's place because he helped cover up the murder she committed. She knows all the details. She knows all the details of the body. She knows all the details of everything on that woman, on Miss Paxton's body, her tattoos, number of kids, all these kind of things. You know why? Because she was there with her 12 to 13 hours a day by herself. The whole time, anytime, whenever she was there. She was the one who was with her. The ME told you that all those injuries, I think the DA asked her, how long would it take to accomplish this? Someone would have to spend a lot of time with them, right? Well, who spent a lot of time with her? Not Sean, he was working. He was working, or picking up his mom's medicine. Or, you know, it's something we haven't talked about is I'm guessing that he probably slept on occasion too. So if he's working 12 or 13 hours a day and he sleeps only 5 or 6 hours a day, it doesn't leave a whole lot of time for him to be controlling Rebecca and setting up all this stuff for this murder that he had absolutely no reason to commit. No reason to commit. He's living his life. The only thing that changed about his life, he's already got girls that come over and have sex with him. That's what we learned, right? He's already got girls that will come over and have sex with him and help him take care of his mother. Even after Rebecca's there, girls come home with him and they have threesomes. And they happen and everybody moves on with their life. That's his life. That's what's going on. We may not agree with the lifestyle or whatever, but that's the lifestyle he was living. That didn't change until she entered the picture.
The jury deliberated for about 5 hours before issuing their verdict.
Count 1, premeditated first-degree murder of Jennifer Paxton. We, the jury, find the defendant Sean Finnegan guilty of criminally negligent homicide. Verdict form for count 2, first-degree felony murder of Jennifer Paxton during the perpetration of attempt to perpetrate aggravated rape. We, the jury, find the defendant Sean Finnegan guilty of first-degree felony murder during the perpetration or attempt to perpetrate for aggravated rape.
Unlike Rebecca Dishman, Finnegan still faced the death penalty. So the next day, the case moved into the penalty phase.
Sean Finnegan should be given the same amount of mercy that they gave Jennifer Paxton. In this case, the first entire portion of the case, we talked about the crime, and now we're talking about the consequences. And the crime, you've held him responsible for first-degree felony murder and 2 different counts. And that gets us to the point where we talked about in voir dire, once you establish that he's committed first-degree murder and he's responsible for her death.
As the state mentioned, yes, there are going to be the legal principles of this process are the presentation of aggravating circumstances and presentation of mitigating circumstances. And so our mitigation is going to be basically a variety of instances from his childhood, the things that he experienced, what his family unit was like, sort of the foundation of his life, and why perhaps why we're all sitting here talking to each other. Maybe some explanation for that. But ultimately, I want you to remember that aggravating circumstances are a reason to impose death. Mitigation is a reason to vote for life. And at the end of this small trial, I'll get back up and I'll be advocating for a sentence of life.
During the state's case, they presented Jennifer's loved ones who gave emotional testimony.
The most awful thing that could happen to a person and their family did happen. Jennifer was murdered. Jennifer, who was a mother, a daughter, a granddaughter, a sister, a niece, and a cousin. Her mother, Patty, didn't make it through the loss and devastation. She died with a broken heart before Patty passed away. She asked myself and the other ladies here with me today to promise her we would be here every day in court for her and Jennifer to show Jennifer was loved, is loved, and forever will be loved and missed. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Patty, like many other parents of addicts, was terrified of getting that call or knock on her door
to tell her that Jennifer had overdosed and was gone. I spent much of the time after Jennifer went missing with her mother until her passing only 16 months later. She suffered finding out about Jennifer's demise after 9 months of searching. She blamed herself. She stated and questioned regularly how if she had been a better mom, or if she had tried one more time to help her, if she could have prevented what happened to Jennifer. She thought Jennifer fell victim because maybe she didn't feel loved enough, or because she had been so hard on her in her life.
When it came time for the defense's witnesses, Finnegan's former co-worker described him as reliable and laid back.
And so you testified a minute ago, and I think already previously at trial, that Mr. Finnegan worked 5 to 7 days a week. Is that what your testimony was?
Yes.
And you had an opinion that he was reliable, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Can you describe what that means in the context? Why is it important to have a reliable cook in a restaurant? Can you describe that a little bit?
There's a lot of turnover. People, they come, they stay for a while, they quit, or they don't show up to their shifts, or they're late frequently, or anything like that.
Was Mr. Finnegan, did he have a lot of no-call, no-shows, or?
Rarely. Very rare, yeah.
Okay. As far as Mr. Finnegan's attitude and demeanor with the staff, how would you categorize that, or characterize that, excuse me?
Generally pretty normal. We joked around a lot. It's a pretty laid-back job.
But Finnegan's sister-in-law painted a more troubling picture of Finnegan's home life, giving jurors insight into what he went through when he was younger.
Can you tell this jury what you and Francis discussed?
Well, Sean came home one day while he was supposed to be coming home from school. It wasn't school he was coming home from. And he was a hot mess. He just walked in his room, closed the door, like in desperate, like didn't want to cry, but just couldn't handle the pain any longer, and told his little brother that he was being abused by the uncles, sexually abused, and made to do things, against his will, what he didn't want to do. And I mean, it was just horrific for someone to take, a child, making them do things and laying them on their bellies and beating them and having sex with them, having other people have sex with them. Just, and brutal, not, nothing like a fantasy. It was an awful experience for him.
It was he and his brother?
Yes.
Both of them?
Mm-hmm.
And how long did that go on?
I don't know how long it went on, because I don't know how long they had to be there with the uncle first in the beginning, but it didn't go on long after the truancy officer came to the house.
During closings of the penalty phase, the state reminded jurors of the horror Jennifer faced before being brutally murdered.
In opening, I talked about mercy and not giving this defendant the mercy that he didn't show to Jennifer Paxton. And when you examine factually what happened in this case, was there any mercy that he showed upon Jennifer? In the 4 days, did they show any mercy upon her? And the only thing factually you could probably muster is the fact that they applied her with morphine, arguably Miss Finnegan's morphine, that they gave her something to dull her pain. And so the only potential for mercy was maybe, just maybe, that she didn't experience the amount of pain that all those injuries looked like they would have inflicted on a normal person of normal sensibilities, right?
But in efforts to save their client's life, Finnegan's defense attorney argued Rebecca Dishman had more culpability in the murder than Finnegan.
I mean, it's horrible. We're not here to minimize what has happened, but I get the feeling that some of you, maybe all of you, tend to agree that maybe Ms. Dishman had more to do with this than the state has been arguing, and that the state tried to present this case. So we do not think it would be fair. It would be disproportionate for Sean Finnegan to be put to death when Rebecca Dishman was the one that strangled Ms. Paxton in the floor of that apartment.
And when the jury came back after reaching a verdict, their decision would be the ultimate punishment.
We, the jury, unanimously find the state's proven beyond a reasonable doubt that the statutory aggravated circumstances or circumstances so listed above outweigh any mitigating circumstances. Therefore, we, the jury, unanimously find the punishment for the defendant, Sean Shannon Finnegan, shall be death. Upon the verdict, the jury find you, Sean Shannon Finnegan, to be guilty of murder in the first degree as charged in the indictment. Upon further verdict of fixing the punishment of death, it is therefore ordered that you shall be put to death by lethal injection in the mode prescribed by Tennessee law pursuant to the provisions of Tennessee Code annotated 40-23-114. You'll be transferred to the custody of the warden of the state penitentiary at Nashville, Tennessee, pending appellate review.
And Sean Finnegan will appear in court again later this fall. An additional hearing is scheduled for the convicted killer for his non-capital convictions on November 7th. Reporting for Law and Crime, I'm Elizabeth Millner.